Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual cognitive behavior and neuro-linguistic programming practitioner specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage and relationship coaching, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one session in both French or English, and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV therapy and coaching services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found at lifecoach.drdanpodcast.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our ninth episode of season 31, a very special guest, Dr. Jeanne Retief, discussing how your existing mental health challenges doesn't define you and helping us find practical coping mechanism to handle these challenges. So just like every of my past episode, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Dr. Jeanne, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you so much for that introduction and for having me on your podcast. I'm so happy to be here. I have been living with panic disorder for when I was diagnosed in 2015. So that's what, like 11 years almost. I have my PhD in international laws of war and criminal law, and I practiced in that field for almost 20 years. And then because of my diagnosis and a whole bunch of complications that came with really mismanaging that diagnosis, I had to step away from that and reinvent my life and how I managed my life and my mental wellness. And that led me to the company I have now, which is Figgy Beauty, that focuses on anxiety related issues and develops skincare for anxious souls.
Oh, perfect. So, the fact that you personally dealt with those challenges yourself, when did you say to yourself that, okay, whatever I'm dealing with right now, it's not who I am. It's just a path that my mind and soul is going through at this moment. I will solve it and I will move on.
Honestly, I didn't think that. I completely made it my identity, and I was very disassociated from it in the beginning. I was diagnosed in a time where the mental health conversation was not as open as it is now. We definitely did not speak about anxiety like we did now. So when I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, I was really, really mad because I felt like my doctors had just given up on finding out what was really wrong with me and then diagnosed me with stress, um, which I later, obviously, in my journey became to realize that is definitely not what an anxiety disorder is. But it took me a very, very long time to get to a point where I realized this is not who I need to be. This is not how I'm going to define myself. But I did from the beginning feel a sense of this is not this is not how my life is going to play out. I need to find some way to fix this, which led to its own set of issues. But the good thing that came from that was that I always had this resolve to understand how do I make my hopes and my dreams work despite this absolute avalanche that has just hit my life.
Absolutely. Now, did you have to go and seek the help of like a therapist, or did you just read, you learn, you did some personal journaling? What was this step? Because a lot of people sometimes, and even though post-pandemic, Dr. Jeanne, it's no longer, I mean, having a mental illness is no longer a taboo or stigma. Now it's more accepted in our society as everyone is dealing with one sort of another. But for you at that time when you were dealing with it, were you like being judged by others? Were you being saying, oh my God, this is what she has, we should not deal with her?
I wouldn't know because my entire existence became about keeping it a secret. I was so ashamed of it. I didn't want people to know that I was struggling with anxiety because I didn't want them to think that I was lesser than or less capable than. I had a business of my own that was very successful. I didn't want to be judged by the fact that I couldn't handle stress as well as others. Um, so a large part of my life revolved around hiding that diagnosis. And when I was diagnosed, it was a path towards diagnosis. I wasn't just diagnosed, it came from a very long history of childhood trauma that wasn't resolved. And it kind of ended up with me on a normal work trip, having something I thought was akin to a stroke, calling the ambulance, landing up in the emergency room in the middle of nowhere, my husband having to fly down to come and look for me and fetch me. And then a barrage of tests ensued. Like I went for so many neurological tests because they thought I maybe had a stroke or I had some kind of seizure. Then I went for all sorts of gastroenterology tests, every heart tests, every test known to man. And then eventually they said, well, we rolled out everything physically. We think you are struggling with an anxiety disorder. They luckily referred me to a very good therapist who was with me for a very large part of my journey and introduced me to my psychiatrist who helped me get into a good position with my medication.
Beautiful. Well, at least, you took action to be able to change. But even though the fact that you were hiding all of this, did anyone in your family or friends notice something was off?
I mean, I think my husband obviously did because, we're very close and I think he knew something was wrong. I mean, after that incident, it was undeniable that something was wrong because I went into a spiral. I was having 3, 4, 5 panic attacks a day. I stopped eating because I was afraid to eat, because I was afraid of the choking sensation. And if I were to put food in my throat, I would choke. So I completely stopped eating for 2 or 3 weeks. I became very ill. I couldn't leave the house because I was afraid of people and places and noises. So I became completely reclusive. So it was very hard to deny that something was wrong. But um, in terms of my family, we just didn't have that kind of, I would say, relationship really, because I came from a family that was riddled with undiagnosed mental illnesses. And I think this is one of the reasons why I was so ashamed and so afraid of it, because I didn't want to be like them.
I see, I see. So do you think that your anxiety developed agoraphobia, which is the fear of being around people?
In the beginning stages of it, 100% for sure. I have also realized that when I have panic attacks, the first thing I do is start to change like things that I would normally do because I'm afraid that I'm going to have another panic attack. And one of the things is like I would stop leaving the house. Now we are more settled. We understand my diagnosis. We've been dealing with over 10 years. So um, now my husband will, after 2 or 3 days, he'll come to me and he will say, okay, it's time to leave the house now. You need to go to the mall by yourself. Take your phone. I'm here. If you need anything, phone me. It's very hard. I hate doing it. It's so anxiety provoking, but it feels good afterwards because then I can show myself that I didn't die, nothing happened, I didn't stop breathing. Um, it was very hard, but I needed to get out of the house. So now I know that I start avoiding certain things, and then I try, with the help of my husband, to put myself in situations where I, as quickly as possible, try and reacclimatize myself with what so many of us perceived to be normal, but in that moment for me is a very unattainable goal.
Wow. So, would you say that this, from what you had in the beginning, Dr. Jean, in terms of like 5 panic attack a day, now what's the average? Are we talking about 1 panic attack a week, or what would be this with frequency at this point?
I've become much better at understanding and taking a lot of time and energy on a daily basis at understanding my body and the signs that it gives me and understanding my diagnosis. And that's helped me a lot. So I would say in the last year, I've had, say, from January up until now, 2 really bad panic attacks, which for me feels like such an absolute kind of win, really, because I went from having like 5 or 6 a day to 2 a year. Um, and they're not as intense as they used to be, where I used to be completely, really, really down and out for a week or a week and a half. Now I can find my way back within a day or two from the what I call the panic hangover. Um, so it really did help me to put in that work, and then also to understand what my environment is like. For example, my sister passed away in March, so that was obviously a big trigger for many other things. Um, and obviously, with that, things are going to rear up. And I do have the constitution that I have, and I'm built the way that I am built. So with that comes certain, not precautions I have to take, but certain things I have to understand about myself and about my limitations and about what happens when those limitations are overbreached.
So now when it comes to dealing, so when you feel an anxiety attack coming, is there a way for you to be able to manage it from being a full-blown attack? And then you just kind of like do breathing exercise, or you tell to yourself that no, whatever you're dealing with is not real, it's not existing, you're just constructing it on your own. What are the things, or what are the symptoms that you feel it coming? Because after a while, you have mastered some way of anticipating or predicting certain symptom before they go full blown.
So what I will say though is I can't explain it like that because most of my panic attacks happen when I am very deeply asleep. So I have no warning. I will wake up in a panic attack, and then it is really hard to do the breathing and the meditations because you're waking up from a very deep sleep. You're confused. You don't know if you're sleeping or if you're dreaming. And then all of a sudden you have this feeling that you're choking, you can't breathe. So that's very hard. But what I have started to realize is the way I feel before I go to bed. When I am excessively tired, when I have that feeling of like I'm just looking at my pillow on the other side of the room and I feel like I'm already sleeping, when I'm excessively tired, and when I feel I don't know how to describe the feeling, but I know exactly what that feeling is. When I feel disconcerted at bedtime, when I feel like, I don't know, it's like this inner voice almost saying it. And most of those nights I will be afraid to go to sleep because I know. Um, so when that happens, then I will apply more of my tools. Like I'll stay awake a little bit longer, drink my tea, do my sensory exercises, do my meditation. It does not always help, but I feel like it does make it less intense. Um, and then also, it's not just about that moment, it's about everything leading up to that moment. I don't just go to bed one day feeling like this. It's usually after a week of not listening to my body, not knowing my limitations, pushing myself in situations that are too stressful for me to handle at that moment, and putting too much on myself, you know. And I do that less now because I'm more able to see the warning signs 2 days before, 3 days before, 4 days before, knowing that if this is going to persist for another day or two, this is probably the way it's going to end up. I hope that answered the question. I'm
No, it does,
sorry.
definitely. But maybe were you diagnosed also with sleep apnea? And this is possibly why you wake up in a sudden, like attack or emergency, because sometimes when you stop breathing, can also be physiological. There could be a problem with the way that you position your body or something. Isn't that have you tried to see if that was maybe one of the cause?
Yes, I did. I went for a sleep study overnight, and I've done a whole bunch of tests where they like hook you up to all sorts of things and you go home, and there was nothing wrong with my sleeping cycle. So we have done all of those tests. I think it's just, you know, the times when I do have the panic attacks when I'm awake and aware, it's also when I'm at my most relaxed. So it will be like the last day of holiday, not that first day where you're still thinking about work, like the last day when you're at your most relaxed,
Yes.
it will happen to me. So I think that for me, I'm always in this state of awareness and protection. And I get to a point where I'm so overexhausted in doing that that I fall so deeply asleep or I get so deeply relaxed because my body just has no other way but to do that. And then it's triggered because all the walls come down, all these little safety nets that I've built come down. And that's what I think. That's my theory, and that's the theory that I'm currently exploring with my therapist in our sessions. But it's a journey. It's different for everybody. Everybody's triggers are different. Everybody's management system is different.
It's interesting
And
because when you say that this happened when you are in a deep sleep, usually anxiety attack are happening when the person is experiencing something or they're when they try to fix something that they cannot control into the future because anxiety is based on things that has not yet happened. But when you're asleep, your brain doesn't process that the same way as if you were awake. Being asleep, I mean, the last if you read a nice a nice book or something like that, that brings your mind or your brain at peace, and it should not trigger anything. Usually triggers brings the anxiety attack, not something when you're already very relaxed and ready to go to bed.
exactly. I've had all these same questions as well. And by no means am I a doctor. I'm just trying to find my way, and I'm very blessed to have a good medical team that's been supporting me. But as it's been explained to me, is that this is the, and I don't know if that's correct, but this is the difference between an anxiety disorder and a panic disorder or a panic attack, because you don't have that constant fear of the future. You're actually quite high functioning most of the time. And then it just suddenly happens without warning, without, like, there's no shakiness beforehand. There's no feeling like I'm uh, thinking in circles or racing heart or anything like that. It goes literally from absolutely fine to full-blown panic attack. Sometimes when I think back on it, I can understand certain triggers that go back to my previous traumas. And when I'm calmer, I can see, oh, that happened. I never even really connected it to that, but I can understand why that may have triggered it. Um, and it's been explained to me that there may be an element of complex PTSD, and that's why it also happens sometimes. So, but again, like I said, like I'm just trying to figure out my own journey. I'm not a doctor by any means. This is just the way it's been explained to me, and I'm not sure if that's correct.
No, I mean, no, because I mean, obviously, based on the DSM-5, the book with diagnosis book. Yeah, it has. You're right. The panic disorder, anxiety disorder are do have very similar symptoms, but can be triggered differently. So, if in your case it's primarily at night, then maybe there's something that I'm not sure. Like I said, I have done myself sleep study to determine if I had sleep apnea, which was not the
Okay.
case. But I think everyone should at least to be able to understand
Yeah.
exactly what is off in their mind or whatever it is. But the reality is that, yes, it's you're right about the fact that as long as you have a good team that can actually help you and give you anything or any tips to be able to better handle those challenges, then you're good to go. But a lot of people tend to ignore and they just deal with the problem without really addressing it. And that's why I like the listeners to know that it's important to tackle it because it's not worth living a life like that to be able to always wake up in panic or be stressed or be anxious. I mean, the quality of life, it's really diminished.
I mean, I can't agree more, because I think this is also a conversation my husband and I have had many times. It's really about the quality of your life. And yes, this is the way I am wired. Yes, I understand that this is some of my unique challenges, but with the right help, and I'm not saying this was a very difficult road, and sometimes it really does still get me down, but the quality of my life now versus what it was when I was first diagnosed, even I think a couple of months to years before I was diagnosed, is just completely different. And I understand the aversion to wanting to get diagnosed because, as I said, I was so scared. I didn't want to be the same as my family.
Mhm.
But it actually, in the long run, has brought me so much peace, because now it's no longer the monster in the dark. I understand what it is. I have walked this path with my mental health care professionals and team, and I understand what causes it. I understand what it is. I understand the things that I can do to make it better. I'm learning more about my body, and it really does help my quality of life. And I think just your overall wellness, even if you don't have an anxiety disorder, it's great for everybody to have some moments of calm and quiet-mindedness. So you definitely can have a full quality life. It's just a matter of understanding, why you're wired this way and having the right people that can help you along the way.
Beautiful. So, if you could just explain some practical coping mechanism, Dr. Jean, to be able to help those who are actually dealing with similar challenges as you did. Something like just 2 or 3 tips. I don't want it to go too much into details, but then again, like I said, they need, number one, they need to be able to get the help of a practitioner in that, in mental health, either cognitive behavior or EMDR, which are some of the modalities that could actually deal with PTSD. Even dialectical therapy can actually work very, very well. But do you have any other practical mechanism that you suggest?
Are you asking specifically for living with an anxiety disorder or once you are having a panic attack?
Okay, once you have the panic attack, so some people or some listeners may not have them when they're asleep. And
Mhm,
sometimes they could be during the day,
mhm.
they have
Yeah.
trigger, and then it go full blown if they don't address it. So what kind of coping mechanism can be effective for them?
So for me personally, my coping mechanism is that I do need some kind of person support. I cannot talk myself out of a panic attack. But again, like my husband is a great support system for me. So what we would usually do is immediately employ my senses. That helps me a lot. Like 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, but not just going like, oh, I see the door, the window. He'll say, okay, no, explain the door. It's a
Yes.
brown door. It has ridges. I can see that there's maybe a keyhole in it. Like, but I can't do that for myself in that state of panic. I need somebody to talk me through that. And that really takes my mind, it really activates my mind to think of something else because I'm trying so hard to concentrate on the fact that I need to name 5 things and I can't just name it. I need to explain it. And then what comes next again? Oh, yes, 4 things. What am I doing again? Oh, I need to be able to say what I feel. So that really helps me a lot during a panic attack, just so it doesn't go all the way. Once it's all the way, you're just riding the storm. Um,
Mhm.
on a daily basis, I would just say the biggest tip for me, which I wish I knew sooner, is that you have a choice about your mental health care team.
Mhm.
I absolutely believe in therapists and psychiatrists or whatever, is your flavor. But you have the right to say, I don't gel with this person.
I
You are sharing the most intimate parts of your life with this therapist, sometimes on a daily basis in the beginning. You need to feel like you're in a position of trust with this person, that you can feel that you can share these things, and you're allowed to say, this isn't working for me. I would like to seek a second opinion, or even with that's why I feel like I have such a good relationship with my psychiatrist. I can have very open conversations with him about my medications if I'm not feeling well. And he really works with me to understand, okay, what will be the best solution for me? It's your body at the end of the day that's going through everything. And you can choose to have the right people with you. You don't just have to accept, the first therapist that comes your way, which
No, no,
I
definitely. You have to
yeah.
shop around like anything else, like a car. So basically, if I could summarize, you said 5 things that you could see, 4 things that you could smell, 3 things that you could feel, 2 things that you could taste, and 1 thing that you could. So this is based on the 5 neurological senses. Is that correct?
Yes, that's
Okay.
it.
So then by them explaining in details what they see, what they feel, what they smell, what they taste, this is something that's gonna drop down the anxiety level or the magnitude of the attack.
For me, it does, yes, because I don't know why. I think it's because I'm engaging all of my senses. I think it's because I'm concentrating so hard to do it right. So it takes your mind away from whatever is causing that panic in the moment. It's not like it's not like a foolproof instant calm down, but it does start taking you lower and lower and lower. And we repeat it as many times as I need. Sometimes I just walk up and down while I'm saying it. Like I don't really know why it works. It just, for me, works really well.
Okay, well, look, as long as it works for you, that's what's really important. And again, this is a very subjective experience. Some people would need medication to be able to manage all those those symptoms and or those attacks. So it depends.
Yes, sorry, I have to say I do have SOS medications that I need to take when I have a full-blown panic attack.
Okay, you
But they don't always work instantly. Um, and sometimes I don't have it with me or something may happen. For example, when I wake up from sleeping, it's not like I've taken it before I've gone to bed. I take my normal daily medications, but the SOS only during a panic. So sometimes it's too late.
Oh, okay. So this is only per needed basis. It's not something that you take every single day. Is that correct?
I have medication I take every single day, and then I have an SOS medication I take only for when I'm having the actual attack.
So it's like an EpiPen, basically.
Basically,
Okay,
yes.
okay, I see. So before we conclude the podcast, can you tell tell to the listeners first and foremost, how can they find you to be able to like if they're experiencing something very similar to what you've experienced before in the past, Doc? Which way can they reach out to you? Was it through a different social media channel or what is it exactly?
So we're on Instagram at Figgy, Figgi dot beauty. And you can also email me hello at figgybeauty.com.
Okay, and you said you do some beauty products, is that correct? I think I missed that in the beginning.
Yes, when I changed my life around, I realized that one of the symptoms of my anxiety was super sensitive skin. And I just went down this rabbit hole of understanding why that happens. And I decided to develop my own skincare line to serve those that have really, really sensitive skin and anxious souls.
So did you develop allergies because of the anxiety attack? So did this demonstrate as a rash?
Sometimes it's a rash, sometimes I break out, sometimes I start really I call it burn crawling, like my skin feels like it's crawling and burning and then I start scratching and itching and then I almost, make my own wounds.
Mhm.
Other times I'll have really bad patches of dryness. It depends. It just started going a little bit insane, especially after the diagnosis. So I just wanted to feel like I could do something that at least helps one of the symptoms um, and gives back in some way. So I went back to school and did my certificate in cosmetic chemistry so that I could understand how to formulate it and what I wanted to put inside. And it's all made with South African rooibos tea, which is a great anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. So it's really calming and soothing.
That is amazing, Dr. Jean. But on that note, that is all the time that we have for today's podcast. And again, thank you sincerely for taking the time out of your busy schedule all the way from Portugal to
No
join us.
problem.
And we all appreciate your participation to this episode by sharing how mental health challenges shouldn't define anyone struggling with them and teaching them effective coping mechanism. Now, to our millions of listeners out there, we hope that you've enjoyed today's episode as much as we did. And also, we're very excited for what's ahead in season 31 of the Happiness Journey with Drdan podcast, featuring a lineup of incredible guests with powerful stories that will continue to uplift and inspire all of you. Now, here are some concluding words of wisdom. Mental health struggles are a part of life, not the definition of who you are. They are challenges to face, not labels to carry forever. Now, with self-awareness, support, and effort, anyone can grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Today's difficulty don't determine tomorrow's potential. Healing is possible, and setbacks do not erase progress. Now, every step towards understanding yourself is a step towards freedom. Your worth, dreams, and purpose exist beyond any diagnosis or struggle. Mental health challenges may shape your journey, but they don't define your destination. My name is Dr. Dan Amzallag, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life.